everyone. Welcome back to Open Your Eye podcast. I know that last week I said that I might be doing an episode on like clearing your space and how that affects your mood and your mental space and everything around you. But some things have happened recently in my life, and I wanted to be able to come on here and share a personal experience with y'all. I'm going to preface this by saying I'm going to try to get through this episode without crying. I don't know how good of a job I'm going to do at that, but I think that my experience will help some people. I've been noticing a lot of heartache and breakups and infidelity and betrayal and just a lot of good-hearted people being hurt, and I just wanted to share a recent experience with you that may help in furthering or igniting your healing process. So, in the very first episode that I posted of me, getting back into the podcast again, I had mentioned that my relationship had recently ended. And by recently, I mean within the last, we broke up maybe 2-3-ish weeks ago. He was staying with me in my house with myself and my daughter. We had been together for a year. Almost a year. January 4th would have been a year. And the reason that it ended, or the reason that the impression that I had was that he was not ready for the type of relationship that I wanted and desired at that time and still do. And he had a lot that he needed to work on and figure out for himself. And he didn't have the effort to put into us until he got his shit together, basically. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, he just needs to figure his shit out. He's gonna work on himself. This time of separation is gonna be used to for him to figure out what he wants, get his affairs in order, get his ducks in a row, and all of this is going to lead up to us getting back together at some point down the line. I'm going to work on myself, he's going to work on himself, and we're eventually going to meet in the middle at some point. And the reason I thought this was because of the connection that we had. He was my best friend. He was someone that I felt comfortable with, that knew me better than most people. I say most because I have other best friends who have seen me at my worst and, different stages of my life, but, he was up there in the people that knew a different side of me. And I felt like I had the privilege of getting to know him on that deeper level as well. And so I felt like we had this unique, unbreakable bond that, nothing would come between us. Like, eventually we're going to figure it out. It's all going to work out in the end because we're meant to be together. I thought that I had found the person that I was going to spend the rest of my life with, essentially. He was my best friend. No matter what happened, at the end of the day, I still loved him. and I just thought that it was bad timing, right? Like, we got the right people, we picked the right person. It's just shitty timing, right? And so when things ended, like I said, I thought that the point was for this to all end up with us getting back together at some point. Never in my wildest imagination did I think that we would break up, he would move out, and he would start pursuing someone else. The hardest part was to find out that it wasn't that he started after he moved out. This had been going on for a while. I'm not sure how in depth it was while we were together, whether it was physical or not. In my opinion, if you are in a relationship with someone, if you are dedicated to that person, unless you have said, we're no longer doing this, and even if you're living with that person, if you open the door to allow someone else to have access to you, personal, intimate access, whether that's physical or not, it's cheating. That's just how I feel. And the hard part was, I knew it was coming. And I say this because I had my suspicions months ago. But when I addressed them with him, I was gaslighted, and I was made to feel like, why would you even say that? Like, oh, she has a boyfriend, or this, that, and the third. But there was just something that didn't feel right. But at the time, I trusted him. And so a series of events unfolded recently that prompted me to look a little deeper. And I actually didn't have to look really deep. I mean, everything was there for me to see. I just had to look. And I looked, and I saw what I needed to see. And I didn't need any explanation from him. I knew what it was, because I'm not stupid. I've been cheated on and played enough times in my life. I know what it looks like. And I've never felt hurt and pain like that before. I've been in previous relationships, yes. I've been in situations where I've been cheated on and played and lied to and made to look like a fool, and all of these things. Like I said, I've been around the block. Like, I didn't have to sit there and like wonder. I knew exactly what it was, because I've been here before, right? So the instance, the circumstances were not new. The difference was, this was somebody that I least expected to do this to me. It was someone who I had bared my soul to, who I had given all of me to, who knew what I had been through in the past, who knew how I had been hurt and betrayed and left wondering and left with no closure. He knew all of those things. And yet he still ended up being just like everyone else. And it really took me aback. I felt betrayed. I felt disrespected. I felt like he had made a fool out of me. I felt like I was walking around thinking that we were one thing and everybody's just laughing behind my back because he's being so obvious about this other person, and I had no clue until I started to look for it. And I hadn't looked for it in the past because at the time I trusted him, right? Because that's what you do in a relationship. What is a relationship without trust, right? So when I found out, I was on shift that day. And as you know, I work 24-hour shifts. That was a hard day for me. One, because I physically saw them. And you would think someone that you just spent a year of your life with and were just living with, that it wouldn't be a problem to hug this person, right? But that day, he decided to make an excuse as to why he didn't want to give me a hug because he was in front of her. But previously never had a problem with giving me or anybody a hug for that matter. And so that day was hard, but I couldn't completely fall apart. I had a job to do. I was on shift. I had to take care of my patients. But I cried most of the day. I couldn't eat. My stomach was in knots. It was a pain like I had never felt before. And the following day, when I was off, thank God class was over because I couldn't imagine going to class the next day. The next day that I was off, I went to the gym to try to get my mind off of things. And I came home, and you know the thing that people do when they're sad, and so they listen to sad music to make themselves more sad? Yeah, that was me. So I'm at home, I'm listening to all this sad music and, you know, all of these songs about betrayal and falling apart and falling to pieces and everything. And I listened to those songs because I knew that I had this pain inside of me that I needed to release. And the only way that I can release that pain is by crying. But I never expected for screams to come out of me. That's never happened before. I was in so much pain that I was screaming. So I took those 2 days and I let myself feel all of the things. That's the first thing that I want to talk about. A lot of people, sometimes when people go through breakups, you know, they'll confide in people and their friends, and they'll tell them, you know, girl or guy, like don't let them, you know, get you down. You know, you're better than this. Like they don't deserve you. You can do better. Like don't even worry about it. Well, yes, all of that is true. Like, no, you don't deserve that. You do deserve better. No, you shouldn't allow them to, you know, occupy every thought of your mind and drag this on. This is all true. However, you are allowed to grieve. I made another podcast episode, for those of you who have been listening for a while, on grief, and I talk about the fact that grief isn't just reserved for when people die. You can grieve the loss of a friendship. You can grieve the loss of a future, like the idea of a future that you were going to have with someone. You can grieve the loss of a significant other. You can grieve the loss of, a job ending. You can grieve the loss of disappointment. Anything that is a loss is warranted with grief, right? Or grief is warranted for that. So I had to take my time to grieve. But it wasn't going well because I could not stop thinking about just how could he do that? It just, I could not understand. Now, I didn't get the closure that I needed because I didn't get explanations from him. Not that I really needed it, because I just felt like he was going to lie anyway. And it was just a whole culmination of emotions and feelings. And I had to find some way to pull it together because, as y'all know, I have a lot of tests coming up. I'm about to be a medic. I have too much going for myself. I have a daughter that I have to take care of. I have work that needs to be done. I can't just completely fall apart, right? So I'm like, okay, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to cope with this? And as I mentioned before, I'm trying to get better with alcohol, so I'm avoiding that. I'm very proud to say that I have not gone to the liquor store and bought, a bunch of booze and I'm drinking my problems away. I'm not doing that. Instead, I've actually been going to the gym, finding healthier ways to take my mind off of things. But I had to figure out a way to cope in my mind, right? Because that's where all of the thoughts and what ifs and how could he's and all of that's where everything was, right? So I had to find a way to get through it in my mind, right? So I started thinking back and asking myself questions. I would say things like, oh, but I miss him. I love him. And I would ask myself, well, Erin, what do you miss? Because if I was honest with myself, then I would know that 50%, actually more than 50%, maybe 75% of the time, I was not happy. And let me explain why. Since the beginning of our relationship, I felt like I had to initiate everything. Spending time with each other, dates, communication, everything. I felt like my past was judged a lot. Actions and things that I did in my past that I was not ashamed of, that I didn't see anything wrong with what I did, and also it's in the past. He was living with me, as I said, and he barely helped around the house. He had a problem with me having guy friends. But obviously he was able to have friends who were female. And I just felt like, especially towards the end, my feelings and just me in general, I was not being considered at all. It was like he would do things and it wouldn't even be a thought in his mind, a thought that crossed his mind as to how I might feel or how I would react. And he excused all of this away by saying that he wasn't ready for the level of relationship that I wanted, like I mentioned before. But he mentioned that like 11 months into our relationship. So I'm like, my dude, it's too late for that. Like, we're way past that already. Like, you're living with me. Like, what are you talking about? So I had to be realistic with myself and say, Aaron, what exactly is it that you're missing out on? Because you're telling yourself, how you miss this person, you love this person, and you felt like he was the one that you were going to spend the rest of your life with, and all of these things. But then in the same breath, you're saying that he didn't consider your feelings. He had rules and standards for you that didn't apply to him. He didn't initiate anything with you, especially towards the end. And anytime that I would initiate anything, like suggestions on things to do and ways to hang out and spend quality time together, they would get rejected. But he was able to go do those things with his friends, no problem. Like, not even a thought. His friends would ask, and before I knew it, he was jumping up and getting ready and going out the door. And also, I had to tell myself, if all of those things are true, Aaron, is that the love that you want? Is that the love that you deserve? Is that what love looks like and feels like? Not my version of it. Not the love that I want, not the love that I know I deserve. But the pain comes in when you know that you would have never done that person the way that they did you. And you know that you poured so much of yourself into this person, into this relationship. And here I am thinking, oh, this is just a bad patch. This is just a bump. This is a hump that we have to get over. And once he figures out his shit and all of that, we'll be better for it. We'll get back together and it'll be better. And I was in this state of trying to mend and repair and fix and keep a relationship with this person because I didn't want to lose this connection that I disregarded my boundaries. I disregarded the standards that I had set for myself. See, if I had listened and stuck with my boundaries that I had and the standards that I had set for myself, I wouldn't have been in this position. Let me explain. This time last year, I had recently gotten out of a relationship, like the month prior. And once again, I was the one initiating everything. Towards the end, I was getting ignored. I was, things like that. And I told myself, I am no longer chasing after men. I'm not doing it. I'm not initiating it. If they want to, they will. Period. Well, I developed this strong connection and this strong friendship with this person, and I didn't want to lose it. And I wanted the outcome that I saw in my head, which is another thing. Not being attached to outcomes. I have this really bad habit of, well, one, not dating and seeing, who would be a good fit for me. I am interested in one person and develop a strong connection to them to the point where I don't see anybody else, and it's just them. And so that's not fair for me because I'm putting all my eggs in this one basket. And, it could be another year of my life wasted because we were never on the same page, right? But attaching myself to how I saw our future kept me in the relationship, because it's like I pictured this beautiful life with this person and I wanted that. And so I tried to morph this person into who I wanted them to be, to fulfill that outcome, to fulfill my version of love. I didn't have to so much in the beginning because, as always, he was saying all the right things. He was doing all the right things for about 3 or 4 months. And then it stopped. Then it got to the point where I literally had to give him an ultimatum. I said, if you cannot prioritize planning to see me and spend time with me at least twice a month, and that's the bare minimum, at least twice a month. I'm not asking you to spend money on me. I'm not asking you to take me out or what. Just prioritize seeing me and spending time with me. If you cannot do that, then what are we doing here? There's no point in this. So that should have been my first sign. I shouldn't have to give you an ultimatum. Also, if I had stuck with my boundary of I'm not living with a man unless we are engaged or married, period. But because I knew his past and things that happened to him, and in my mind, we were together at the time. So when he was put in a situation where he needed a place to stay, it was a no-brainer. Like, duh, you're staying with me. Like, that's not, like, what? But again, we were not on the same page. I was thinking that him moving in would look completely different than what it actually did. And I say all this to say, givers and nurturers have to have limits and boundaries because takers don't have any. I didn't expect for him to be just like everyone else. But also, if I had kept my word to myself, I wouldn't have been put in this situation. I'm always left feeling, after all of these relationships, here I am again in the same situation. I'm in the same spot again. The same kind of circumstance. I'm back at square one. How did I end up here again? How? And I have to take myself out of that victim mentality and put power back into me, because that kind of thinking gives the other party all of the power. Yes, this person took advantage of me. Yes, this person did not see my value. They took me for granted. Yes, all of those things are true. Yes, what they did to me was wrong. and it was hurtful and I did not deserve it. But how am I going to change my future? How am I going to pick up the pieces? How am I going to make sure that I'm not put in this situation again? Because I can't control how other people treat me. I can't control what other people do, but what I can control is how I move when these things are done to me. What I can control is how quickly I say, nope, when I see those red flags. What I can control is my mental state and my outlook. And instead of being attached to outcomes, I'm attached to my peace. I'm attached to myself. What I can control is loving myself so deeply and becoming one with myself so that when another person comes into my life, I know exactly what it looks like when they love me because I love me that deeply. Right? So it's okay to feel everything that you are feeling right now. I still feel it to this day. Everything is fresh. I still have those thoughts going through my head. But I'm also thankful. I'm so thankful. I'm thankful that I was able to see his true colors before I was intimate with him again, because that was a possibility, even though we were broken up. And if I found out what I found out after we had been intimate, so I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that it didn't work out, because I was obviously very wrong about the person that I thought that I was going to spend the rest of my life with. I was obviously very wrong about this person. But you know what? As much as this hurts, I know from experience, because like I said, I've been here before, it always hurts in the beginning. And then a week goes by and it hurts a little less. And then a month goes by and it's getting a little better. And then 6 months goes by and you realize you barely think about that person anymore. I'm thankful because now that things did not work out, I have the amazing privilege of getting back to myself again. I have the amazing opportunity to love myself deeply and focus on myself and my family and my future. Is it lonely? Absolutely. I miss having somebody in the bed with me. I miss having someone I can share my life with. Of course it's lonely. But I have to get to a point where I love myself more than I love the company of a man, more than I love nurturing a man, more than I love the idea of a relationship. And I'm thankful that it didn't work out, because now I have room in my life for the person that's actually supposed to love me, the person that I'm actually supposed to spend the rest of my life with. So, as much as it hurts, and it's going to hurt, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, it sucks. As much as it hurts, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And now there's hope for a better future. Now there's hope for room for what the right love looks like. Whether that's the love that you give yourself or love that you find with someone else down the road. But you wouldn't have known that if you stayed in this relationship that was actually not really serving you. So whether you ended it or it ended in a way like mine did, you have something to be thankful for. I have things to be thankful for, because now I know a little more about what I don't want, so I can find what's actually meant for me, and so can you. So that's all I have for today. Until we meet again, namaste.